Hello everybody and welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candace Marie. Thank you for joining me. It is my Friday night live reading. So if you guys are new to my channel, make sure you click the bell button below, subscribe so you can get the alerts. I do these every Friday. We alternate Fridays. So one week we do tarot, one week we do astrology, and it is astrology this week. We're doing live readings. If you are one of my top tier 3 level subscribers, you are going to be one of the first people who I address if you want to utilize your one question that you have monthly for your subscription. Otherwise, if you check up here and you see my little scan code for PayPal, you can scan, or you can also check out the link that is in the chat. We also have super chat. We're going to answer questions in orders in which they were received. So thank you for your patience. Don't worry. If you make a purchase, please let me know if your name on YouTube is different than on PayPal. Sometimes we'll get like a reading that comes in and there's like a different name, or sometimes people don't want their real name being used. So when you make the purchase in PayPal, you can actually use the memo to ask me your question. So for me to be able to read your natal horoscope and look at your chart, I will need your exact time, date, including the year, and city of birth. So make sure that you give me that information. It can be found on a birth certificate. This can also be equally really fun and a great way to just watch me analyze charts and do readings, so you get like an idea and a vibe for how I read. And it can also be really helpful in just learning more about astrology. So sometimes people come and hang out here on Fridays to learn more about how I interpret tarot cards, or to learn more about how I interpret charts. So we've got a couple people who are already waiting. Just a special thank you to all of my level 2 and level 3 subscribers, people like Paula, Nancy, Jessica Martinez, Catherine Murray, Angeli, Sam Norton. Equally, we've also got Emma R., Susan Wexler, Phoenix. Thank you guys for being subscribers. It looks like we have got, I don't know if we have anybody for the month yet. Looks like everybody's pretty much utilized their questions if you are a level 3, but don't let that stop you. If you have a question, if you would like to purchase one, you can do so at my little QR code. Hello to everybody in the chat. It's nice to see you guys. Thank you for joining me. If you're not used to this, just so you guys know, I am a Western evolutionary astrologer. Kind of a contradiction, but I studied both. Big in archetypal astrology, predictive astrology. We're doing one question, whether that's a transit or just a general question that you have. And that will be for $40, or for $65, I'm answering questions about synastry aspects. It's a lot of like, are we compatible? You know, what draws me to this person? What does the future potential kind of look like of our compatibility? Could it maybe possibly work? So if you have any of those questions, I'm happy to answer them for you. So let's take a look and see what's going on in the chat. Man, it's just, the retrograde's getting ready to start, which I don't usually like. I'm not one of those people who's like super freaked out about a retrograde, but it's in Libra and I'm feeling particularly tongue-tied. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if you guys are feeling it, the Mercury square Pluto. Maybe it's because it's in my rising sign, but I feel super tongue-tied for some reason today. So I don't know, we'll see. How is the Mercury square Pluto shaping up for you guys? The retrograde's just getting ready to start. So I'd be interested to hear how it's affecting some of you. We got a couple people in the queue. We've got Chloe, and we've also got Tamara, and we've got some really cool questions. People are asking questions about progress charts, which is not something that we have really looked at a lot on here. I will take a look at transits to the natal, I'll take a look at solar returns, I'll take a look at lunar returns, I'll take a look at progress charts. But finally, somebody asked me a question about progress charts. So that's what we're going to be starting with. Hello, Lucas, Malaya, Kristen, nice to see you guys. How is it going, my Friday night crew? So I'm gonna kind of jump right into it. One of the first questions that I got was about progressed charts. Oh yeah, messy is an understatement. Sam, just let me know. I've got you marked down for having answered a question earlier in the month. So it was perhaps maybe in one of the earlier Friday videos that we've posted. Otherwise, just shoot me a message, or shoot me, you can shoot me a message on my email if you want. I'm happy to chat with you. I try to keep track of everybody. So if we answer something, that way we know who we answered throughout the month. But there's definitely a lot of lives, so it's kind of hard to kind of keep up. So the first person that we're going to be taking a look at is Chloe. And Chloe said, "Hi Candace, unlikely to make the live. It's 3 a.m. my time. Would love some insight that might come up over the Libra and Scorpio season for my progressed chart. Finding it hard to trust my intuition and spirit to make decisions. It would be good to know what the astro weather is going to throw at me so I can make the most of it. Big love." So she was born on August, excuse me, let me pull this up correctly, because this is definitely not correct. I don't know why that's not coming up correctly. There we go. There we go. Maybe it was just me. The Mercury retrograde is getting me. I can feel it. It's all the squares. I'm like double and triple checking everything. Okay, so yes, this is her progressed chart. She was born originally on August 29th, 1985. So this is progressed to this date. So if you see the top left corner, September 24th, it's the progressed chart. So when we take a look at this chart, she's asking questions about what's going to be happening during Scorpio and Libra season. Let me pull it up with the transits. There we go. So in this particular chart for Chloe, Libra is pretty much, I mean, for the most part, there is Libra on the cusp of the third, but most of the Libra placement in this chart is going to be in the second house of ownership, value, self-esteem, the money that she owns, purchasing power, things like that. So think like finances, right? This is like the money that you have in your purse, or things that you're purchasing, or it can even represent aesthetics. It's a Taurus house, so it's very personal. And she was also asking about Scorpio season, what's going to be happening during Scorpio and Libra season. So a progressed chart, for those of you guys who are not aware, it's how the planets progressed on an annual basis, basically. You can look at it up to the date of right now, but essentially like each planet is going to move very slowly over time, and it's just kind of this slow evolution of who she has become. It's a really great question to ask, because a lot of your personal planets in your progressed chart are kind of in the line of fire for the Mercury retrograde. So I would say you want to take a look at the Mercury retrograde in aspect to your second house. So for a progressed Virgo rising, we're still going to look at what are the aspects happening to your natal Mercury. What's going on with your natal Mercury. Apparently, for the time being, Mercury is getting ready to backtrack over your natal Mercury. So in a retrograde, especially when you have a Mercury retrograde over a natal Mercury, it's almost like a turning inward, giving you the ability to change your mind, giving you the ability to rethink, rework something. And I see it, especially at 19 degrees, as like reevaluating what you value when it comes to relationships, Libra, how you're spending money, how much people should be paying you, what your worth is. So that can be one way that it plays out. I find it very interesting also that it is actually going to stop, and it's going to station at 10 degrees of Libra. So it's going to move from 25, go all the way retrograde, past your Mercury, conjunct your Sun in your progressed chart. And that is the ruler of your 12th house. So it's a lot of like, do I have fears over loss? Do I have fears over value? Do I have fears over stability? How am I focusing on my mental mindset? When the Sun rules the 12th house and it's in the second of what I may or may not lose. Whether or not I'm going to pay the bills, whether or not I'm going to, get the raise. It's a lot of reworking the spiritual beliefs. And I can say this personally because I have Sun and Mercury in the second. It's very similar. For me, I guess I kind of look at it as you really benefit from breaking down and letting go of all of the anxiety revolving around self-worth, or you really benefit from kind of like unpacking all of the stress that revolves around security, and becoming more kind of tightly focused and honed in on your spiritual beliefs. It's all in air signs, so a lot of it is like clearing, mental clearing that you're doing. It can also be that you're cleaning something out. You're cleaning out the ghost of ex relationship past, especially when it's in Libra. You're learning to let go of things that maybe old partners gave you. Maybe you're letting go of old ways of believing about yourself, where maybe your self-esteem wasn't quite in alignment. There can also be some very intense and very significant dreams that come through for you that help you feel more solid and stable. So that's also kind of like the cool benefit of having, I think, your Sun and Mercury in the same sign as your 12th house, is that it's giving you the opportunity to be able to kind of go, I don't feel so secure, but what is my intuition telling me? I'm not feeling so secure, but what are my dreams telling me? You know, what is my reader telling me? What is my therapist telling me? What is my spiritual beliefs telling me? So it's really allowing you to really start to integrate a lot more intensely, revolving around what you value. And this can be also aesthetic changes, you know, beauty preference changes, things like that can happen. But I think that Mercury also rules your 10th house. So it's a lot of like, well, what's my worth? You know, what do I think I deserve to be paid? You know, do I feel like I'm getting paid enough to do the job that I'm doing? So that's another question that I would ask myself. I'm loving also that in your progressed chart, your progressed moon is in Gemini, and it's in the 10th house, and it's moving into a very strong trine, both with your progressed Jupiter in the 5th and your progressed Sun and Mercury. Girl, I was just thinking earlier today, my progressed moon is in Gemini. It's the last degree of Gemini. I'm never going to say a bad thing about Gemini moons ever again, like ever, because I feel like I'm constantly like changing my mind and like feeling like a crazy person. And it's like I go left and then I go right. And it's just really, I don't know, I don't have any air in my chart. So it's been a lot. So having a moon in Gemini, it's almost a little, in the 10th house, it's more grounded, but it's like kind of all over the place. And to me, there's a lot of like you trying to tether and ground that out because it's being ground out in a second house, which has a lot of stability. So I look at this and go, what are you wanting to change about your career? And where are you wanting to be more secure, but also feeling more creative because of the aspects that it's making to transit Saturn and Jupiter? And how are you learning how to communicate and express the fact that you really want to make a change in the 10th house out in the world? So it can be, I was doing this for a living, now I'm doing that. I identify as this, and now I identify as that. So there's something changing about your role in the world. It can involve wanting to have a more kind of creative sense of expression and like moving more into work that's going to allow you to be creative with words. Equally, it could be a situation where there are some shifts revolving around, you know, children, lovers, all of that creative kind of 5th house stuff. So I would say be super present for what comes up. The fact that this is all happening in your progressed chart tells me that it's almost like the setup for you. So once the progressed moon in about 3 months' time comes into a conjunction, comes into an exact trine with your sun, you're able to ground out your visions and your beliefs and your ideas and make them a reality. Then it starts coming into a trine with Mercury, your chart ruler, and it may be in the new year a birth of some new change in your professional life or just your life out in the world that you identify with more. I don't know if that makes sense, but pay attention to the dates in which Mercury was hanging around 19 degrees. It looks like that was back around mid-September, maybe the 13th through the 15th. Equally, when Mercury was on your sun, it looks like there might have been like a commitment to something or an idea that happened around September 8th, and it's going to come back up for reevaluation, and you may actually, when the sun shows up with Mars, start putting it into action and going, this is what I'm doing. This is what I need. I need more of this. I need this change, because Mars represents change in your 8th house. So hopefully that's helpful for you. Definitely a lot that's going on over the next 3 months. And I really feel like being that Mercury is being stopped short from going into your 3rd house, it's kind of getting everything in order for your values before you're issued contracts, sign things, agree to things, purchase cars, write books, take new programs, all of that 3rd house stuff. Obviously, from what I understand, you're not watching this, you're probably sleeping. So hope you slept well. Good morning when you watch this. And you'll have to leave me a comment and let me know how that applies, whether that's, you know, when the retrograde's over in 3 weeks or when you watch this. I hope this was helpful. Just scrolling back to see what you guys are going on, what you're saying. Going to ask about progress chart, just a solar return instead. Hello, Flower. Yeah, lots of emotional stuff. Oh no, $2,000 in repairs, but you got that. That's such a good move. The fact that you got the second quote, because the Mercury square Pluto makes me feel like some shady mechanic stuff. I'm glad you didn't get ripped off. Let's take a look. Hey, Mags. Okay, so let me pop on over and I'll take the next one, and this is Tamara. I don't think Tamara is going to be watching either. I believe she sent me a message, so let me set hers up really quick, and then we'll move on to who we have next. And she has got a lot of questions for me. So her birthday is April 27th, 1993. And that was at 8:26 p.m. That was in the Netherlands. All right, so let's see what she's got going on. Okay. Okay. So her question was, been on the transformation train since last year. I've continued making radical life changes. This year's been intense. I've only started with astrology a few months ago, but thanks to your videos and your podcast with Mike, I've been able to learn so much already. I looked at my transits and I get the feeling this year has still some intensity left for me. My question is, what do you recommend me to focus on for the upcoming months? Good question. Let's take a look. And let's see what's going on. Okay, so you're Scorpio rising, sun in Taurus, moon in Cancer. So what do I feel like is most important? Well, you've already gone through quite a bit of change here. You've had, you know, Uranus cross over your sun. So that's definitely created quite a bit of change, especially revolving around 7th house, which would be relationships, partnerships, clients, like changes in that regard. And then secondly, the sun rules your 10th house, which is about your career. So it tells me that there's some weird Uranian things that are going on with your career that's like kind of really opening up for you. And you're starting to realize that there's lots of changes happening revolving around how you want to come across in the world, maybe what you want to do for a living, giving some kind of intuitive insight. There's something like that that's kind of happening. And two, I also noticed that you're coming into a period here very soon where there are going to be some very, very, very big activations revolving around Pluto in your chart. One being, you know, the signs, the South Node signs are going to be changing here pretty soon. So in the new year, the South Node's moving into Scorpio for Scorpio risings. It's a lot of like learning to detach and releasing and letting go, I think, from old personas, old ways of looking, old ways of treating your body, old ways of living in fear or resisting change or resisting transformation. I also feel like with the North Node going into Taurus, it's kind of an interesting kind of aspect to be a Taurus sun and a Scorpio rising. It tells me that there's almost like what you're willing to let go of, there's a lot more to gain. So when you're willing to let go of old, outdated ways of being or moving through the world, the activations that happen in your 7th house with the eclipses and the North Node moving through Taurus is going to bring you closer to relationships, nurturing relationships, stable relationships, relationships that are here to give you security and they're here to make you feel loved, right? Or valued. I think of that very much so when it's the ruler of the 7th. Equally, the other thing that I would say is that the South Node is then coming into conjunction with your Pluto in the new year. And you're also having eclipses in mid-November that are going to be aspecting your Pluto. Pluto is your chart ruler. So pay attention when you have an eclipse there. It's talking about the fact that you're letting go of old, toxic, outdated ways of being. You're acknowledging that something is dying off, so something new can be reborn. You're becoming aware of your personal power. And you're also realizing that you have the power to shed skin, thus the life of a Scorpio rising. You guys came into this world fighting, and you definitely go through a lot of like deaths and rebirths throughout your life. I lived here, and then I moved. I had that job, and then I quit, and then I became this, or I had that relationship, and then it ended, and then I met that person. So with every ending, there's a new beginning. And I would say really pay attention to the eclipse that's going to be happening mid-November revolving around your Pluto, because it makes me feel like it's going to start that chapter and really get you into a whole new way of living and a whole new life that is going to be taking place for you, really about mid-November through summer of 2022. Now, the other reason why I mentioned Pluto is that you're getting ready to come into your Saturn's return. You have a natal Saturn square Pluto. That's a really heavy hitting aspect that tells me that there's going to be a lot going on in your Saturn return revolving around, roots, home, possibly relationships that you have with siblings or aunts or uncles or cousins, possibly relocating. And to have Saturn square Pluto, those are the two badasses of astrology. So I would say also equally, you really want to pay attention to the health of a parent, because there can be things that shift revolving around that affect your location and ultimately where you're living or where you're choosing to reside, long-term or short-term. So Saturn in the fourth can represent a challenging relationship with one of the parents. It doesn't always mean the mother or the father. So I feel like Saturn can also represent authority. And so where family doesn't give you the freedom to feel like you can, be your most intense Scorpio rising self. I could see that. So you're not just dealing with your Saturn return, you're dealing with Saturn return coming into a square with your natal Pluto. So your Saturn return packs a big punch. It's definitely going to kill off old emotional ways of being, and perhaps even like places that you thought were home and then you realize it doesn't feel like home anymore. Equally, on the flip side, you've got, Uranus that's building into an opposition with your natal Pluto. So as you go through these intense changes, relationships are going to come into your life, or you're going to have the option to enter into relationships with people who are going to help you evolve and help you change. If you're a Scorpio rising with the Sun in Taurus, then your Sun's in your 7th house. So there's a lot of revolving around relationships, and somehow a relationship or a partner that you meet or you take up with may somehow come into your life, and it's going to be somebody who I feel like comes in to help you really create change in your professional life and help you go through all of these shifts in a way that's going to kind of provide you with the emotional support. Some of the hot zones are definitely going to be, I think, when like the North Node hits around 28 to it's mid next year is going to get really colorful. So I would really recommend it may just because it's your Saturn return, maybe a good idea to get a reading, but certainly like all of 2020 is wild because it's not just your Saturn return, Saturn square Pluto, Saturn square the transit node, Uranus coming into an opposition with your Pluto. It tells me that it wants there to be almost a severance from home or roots or your past in order to move forward. So that can also be about letting go of the past and moving forward and being able to enter into new relationships. And then lastly, I would say you've got Pluto in Capricorn moving into an opposition with your Mars. So that's a big one. That is definitely going to highlight, things pertaining to travel, information, how you communicate, social media, writing, what you're learning. And that's going to be a longer transit. And because Pluto is the chart ruler and you are Pluto, it says you're standing in opposition to Mars. So if you've been unwilling to let go of the past, it could manifest physically in your body and create health problems, digestional issues. Equally, it can be a situation where if you've been holding back on like picking up and making a bigger relocation, it may be something that ultimately pans out inevitably, whether you know, you want to do it or not, and it'll probably be happening in 2023. So you may fight it a little bit in this next year until that square breaks. I would say stay open to love, stay open to new relationships. Jupiter's going into your 5th house. It's going to conjunct your Venus. It says that there's some new love interest that might come into your life, or maybe it's about a younger person coming into your life who you kind of fall in love with. So, you know, like the list goes on and on. But just because you have such a complex Saturn and because you have such an intense Pluto series of events happening, remember that with Pluto it says transmute or die. So it's about basically saying like certain things will die off over the next 2 years if you're not willing to be open to going to new places or even new relationships. So I think that I would start there. That's like quite a bit of food for thought. Even if your Saturn return doesn't technically start, I believe, until closer to the beginning of 2023, maybe a good idea to preemptively kind of get a jump on it now, because you're going to feel a big push to create a change, especially in your inner world or your home or your emotional sense, really in the spring of 2022. And making that move might make things a whole lot easier when 2023 comes. So hopefully that is helpful and that makes sense for you. Okay, so let's take a look and see who else we've got. Obviously, let me know, because I think both of you guys aren't necessarily watching live, but let me know how that applies, or what you're feeling from that stuff. Let's take a look here. Okay, so Sam, give me your info. And then I've also got Matthew Power, so I'm gonna take Matt. Sam, send me the info. Okay, so let's take a look here. How's it going? It's nice to see you again. Some of you guys, I should just start saving your, your charts, huh? Can I get your date, Matt? I forget, I'm sorry. But Aquarius Sun, Libra Moon, Aries Rising, so I'm going to assume it's like a 10th, 11th house Sun from what I remember. But if you're an Aries Rising, Libra Moon, there's going to be a lot of stuff coming up for you. So send me those dates, guys, and I will plug them in. Those of you guys who are just watching, we're doing live readings. You can check out the scan or also the link in the chat. We're doing aspects in transit. Equally, we're also taking a look at aspects in a natal chart. $40 for one question, $65 for Synastry. 1216 85. Okay. What's your question, Sam? Mm, 533. And that was in Dallas. Synastry is aspects between two people when I see how their charts are interacting with each other. So let me know your question and I will take a look at your chart. I am looking forward to it. It's funny, sometimes I'll talk to you guys preemptively on here and then we end up doing a session. So I'll be like, wait a second, I've seen this chart before. It looks familiar. Ah, there you are. We just did your reading. So if you missed it, you can just go back a little bit and then listen to it and let me know what you think. What is best way for me to make money, most efficient to make most amount of funds or invest. Okay, so money would be moon, or we could even look at Saturn. Part of what's going on is that you have had some stuff going on with Saturn square Pluto. So to me, that doesn't look like investing in traditional market funds is the best move, because it seems to me like you would either be having to come up with money or taking money out of savings to make that happen. So let's focus on your moon. One thing that I'll tell you is that you've got Jupiter, ruler of the 7th, coming into conjunction with your moon, ruler of the 9th house. This has happened several times. I would encourage you to start listening to gurus. I don't know if anybody came up around the end of July, or if anybody came up for you that you were listening to about money around the end of April going into May. So Jupiter coming into conjunction with your moon is going to be like talking to people who are in other places, talking to people who might be like financial consultants, or maybe they have like clients, or they're talking a lot about markets, especially international, because it's Jupiter. I see the moon also as like women, that there's going to be like women who are talking a lot about intuitive investing, or one way of looking at investment in this chart is also like education. So you're talking about making money, but the chart talks a lot about your emotional investment in some kind of education, or educating yourself through a guru coming in, talking to you about how to make more. But to me, it definitely seems like more international trade, or that there is some kind of like currency conversion, because as Jupiter conjuncts with your moon, ruler of the 2nd, it's also trining with Mars, ruler of the 6th. Perhaps maybe like pharmaceutical companies that are foreign but international, pharmaceutical companies, or it can be like, private, maybe hospitals. It can even be artists, or things that have to do with like artificial reality, or film companies. That could be something else that you could invest in that might end up paying off. Your moon is not in a negative aspect. The fact that your moon trines Mars just tells me that you want to go the path of investing in stuff that's going to be about health and wellness. So that's the one thing that you really want to take a look at, is going to be health and wellness investments. Look at maybe like companies that are also doing, stuff involving like a merger between physical and metaphysical health. So it can be like, companies that are like, well, we do these like, yoga streams, or, it's very like Jupiter and Pisces, and videos, or this new app where we're going to be able to like, analyze people's bodies and then tell them like what to eat, or how to work out. But they might integrate mindfulness, so that can be something else that you can. And then the other thing that I would say is that you really do start to see some big shifts that are going to be happening once Jupiter comes back into Pisces, and it's the 3rd hit. So it does look like you might have a little bit of a ramp up, especially in the new year, in your finances. That might happen in January. Equally, there may be a bit of a payoff that's happening the end of February. And then you want to look for when like Mars and Venus are maybe coming into conjunction with your moon. And that can be mid-April. It's kind of the vibe that I'm getting when Mars is there. And then equally when Venus is there, you can make a little chunk of change doing that as well. So somewhere between like the 5th and like, let's say the 18th of April is when you can definitely see a little payoff that can come from that. Interestingly enough, it all squares aspects that you have in your 6th house. So for Pisces, for Sagittarians, you'll hear things like there's things changing with your home or whatever, but really it's your money house. So it's like, what's changing pertaining to, you looking at investments away from your home, right? So it would not be, I don't think, in your home country. I think maybe that's one way to look at it, especially because it's all going to be squaring your natal Mercury. So it's saying it's things that are all going to be different, kind of like Eastern modality, or maybe even, companies that are going to be more so focusing on trading in another place. So hopefully that's helpful for you, Sam. All right. So let me see. And I think we've got Matthew. Is he here? Did we get his info? Let's see. I saw him send his stuff in, but I didn't get a birthday in the memo, and I don't remember it because I know your chart, but I don't remember. Let me know if you sent this. Kurt Matthew, Matt, Kurt. You're welcome, Sam. Sapphire, I will be with you shortly. I might start you soon. But Sapphire, is that the correct time? Do you know the time? Because the more accurate it is, the better. Ideally, if we have the exact time. So if you know it, or if you have access to your birth certificate, you might want to check it. Otherwise, I will talk to Matt a little bit about what I know based off of what's going on here. But yeah, I mean, essentially, you know, if you're an Aries rising and no, 4:19 p.m. Okay. So I'm going to wait and see if I can get this from Matt Kurt. Let me start with Sapphire first. So 11/26/64. What's the city? Can you give me the city, Sapphire? Those of you guys who are tuning in, I need the exact time, date, and location of where you're born. If you're outside of the States, please specify, because the way that you guys do your dates is a little different. I want to make sure that it's correct, because here in the States, we do the month, day, year. You guys do a little different. So spelling it out is always the best way. Okay, cool. Just give me that city. I'm going to get going on setting up your chart, Sapphire. 11/26/64. 4:19 p.m. Los Angeles. I got you. So it looks like you just said you've never done this before. You're just interested in seeing what stands out to me. Giving me full control, huh? All right. 11/26/64. Okay. So let me just pull your chart up without all the transits so you can see what your chart looks like. So you have a 28 degrees Taurus rising, and you have your sun in the 7th house in Sagittarius. And wow, look at your 5th house, Mars, Moon, Uranus, Pluto, all in the 5th. So a couple things. Number one is when you read your horoscope, I would advise you to read Taurus first, although you're a very late degree Taurus, so it might experience a little bit of delay, but for at least my predictions and most astrologers, when we're writing horoscopes, what physically happens is the ascendant. What you want to listen to and what can really affect you for your own personal development is your sun. So I'd say Taurus, then you can read Sag. Off the bat, one of the biggest things that I notice about your chart is that you have like wholly like mutable squares. So mutable are planets that change. They are flexible. They give way to new energy. And you were born with Mars, Moon, Uranus, and Pluto all conjunct in Virgo. So you were born while we were having this super conjunction of Uranus and Pluto, and it just so happened to be your moon being there. So super passionate, super particular. Obviously, you have a lot of really colorful, interesting stories about relationships and dating, or your relationship with children, or what have you. And this is usually a chart of somebody who's very creative, or they're a perfectionist when it comes to design, or perhaps even caretaking. It really depends on how that kind of plays out for you. But all of these planets are in hard aspect to your sun. So Sun square Mars, Sun square Moon, Sun square Uranus, Sun square Pluto. You must have really strong feelings about either lovers or children. Do you want to expand on that? You want to let me know what the deal with that is? Equally, the other thing that I think is quite interesting is that you also have Saturn in your 10th house in Aquarius, and it's a Saturn-ruled sign, but it's in an exact square to your ascendant and your descendant. Just a heads up. You're coming into your second Saturn's return in this next year. The next like 18 months is about pushing for aligning with something professionally in your life that you really genuinely believe in. It's a very karmic transit. It's a coming of age transit. It's very similar to when you were like 29 to 31. And a lot of it is about like, well, what do I want to be when I grow up? Or what do I need to learn in order to kind of set on the world stage and be a grown-up? So being that Saturn's up there is very strong, but I noticed that it's also square some aspects revolving around your relationship to yourself or your relationship to other people. So when I look at this, there's a lot changing in your astrology right now revolving around relationships and whether this is like having to cut certain family members off or certain people are actually leaving your life or people are moving in and out of your home. Like it doesn't have to be negative. It can even be like empty nesting where people are leaving and you're finding yourself now suddenly more in a situation where you have more responsibility for yourself. Equally, I also see that there's eclipses and south node transits that are going through your sun. So this can be a time where there's like a man leaving your life or leaving your home or, going somewhere else, and it's putting pressure on your fifth house. So I definitely kind of like wonder, is it a situation where you're dealing with like a kid who's growing up and is suddenly more in a relationship, or are they like getting ready to go to college? Or are they going to be leaving soon? There's something like that that's kind of like brewing in the chart. But I think the most interesting thing about your horoscope is probably the fact that you have those gangbusters of planets right there in your fifth house that is like doing its thing all in conjunction. Usually like Moon Uranus people are kind of like emotional geniuses. They have like a really strong sense of intuition, and they may be drawn to things like astrology or metaphysics. Especially because that's the ruler of your 10th house. So it might tell me that, you're really interested in watching up like a bunch of like younger astrologers on YouTube because it's youth. And it gets you thinking about like, yeah, I really like this. And like, how can I use astrology to help strategize making changes in my world or even in my life? If I want to like be learning astrology, that's something that you definitely could do. You have a really strong Uranian placement. And then Pluto is in the mix too, which is the ruler of the 7th house. So it tells me that, you can be very driven regarding like some of your emotional passions, and like other people kind of like get you super into it. So I wonder, do you have any other questions? I would really encourage you to go and learn about having Mars, Uranus, and Pluto conjunct your moon, because I think that that's a pretty nifty signature. That and the fact that, you do have like your chart ruler, which is Venus. It is in a sextile to your Mars and your moon. So that's notable. South node in the 7th is interesting too, because it's like relationships come in this life. But I could see this is a situation where it's not totally about relationships. It's more supposed to be about relationships to yourself, to your body, and how you transform how you think. I have a dependent adult child. Yeah, I mean, I gotta keep it real with you. The eclipse and the south node and Mars coming into a conjunction with your sun, I don't know exactly when that is, but that's gonna bring something up where it's like, the setup for, honestly, I don't like saying this, but like kind of getting a man out of your house, or, it could be your son out of your house, and creating and making space and getting ready. So if you did want to go deeper in a relationship, start dating again, meet somebody, have more one-on-one time with a partner if you are married. Equally, there can be some strife if you're in a relationship or, you're married and that person's living there. You can start having some strife coming from your partner being like, look, like, when is it going to be our time? So there's something like this that's brewing because it's like a transit that happens every like 18 or 19 years. So just a heads up that if there is any feeling of like pressure there, it's trying to kind of release that and let that go. Hopefully that is helpful. Did we find Matt? Did Matt come through? No? Okay. I'll talk a little bit about what I do know about that. I don't remember where your other personal placements are, but Aquarius sun, Libra moon, Aries rising. So one thing that I'll tell you is to have an Aries rising chart right now and having Mercury coming into a retrograde in your 7th house is a reevaluation of relationships. Can people from the past come back? Sure. Can there be a situation of like wanting to reach out to people, or people coming into your dreams? Are you thinking about them, or maybe even hearing from them possibly? I think that it's interesting to see the retrograde in your 7th because it's going to be making aspects to Saturn in your 3rd, which is about Saturn in your 11th, which is going to be about social media. It can also equally be about friends, whether or not you can be friends with people who you used to date, or if there's any weirdness there. And it's also an aspect to the North Node in Gemini in your 3rd. So it's like how you communicate. So watch for the social media platforms, random text messages, emails, phone calls that can come through. But it's trying to kind of clear something out because Mercury is in a square to Pluto, which is in your 10th house, and it's the ruler of your 8th. So what it's talking about is like finally addressing, at least mentally, where maybe you have felt like certain people have a death grip on you, and like you can't let go of them, or you can't grieve, or you can't get over them, or you can't forget about them. And if it is somebody who you're meant to reconnect with, because I have found that during retrogrades, it's very karmic, and like there can be a lot of like saying hello and saying goodbye to people, but there can also be people who come back, or if you're meant to connect with them, you will generally around that time. I have spoke about this extensively the last like couple weeks on my channel, where I said like, listen, this retrograde, especially from the end of September through about mid-October, is giving us the opportunity to communicate with all the air trines and clear something out. So on the flip side, if it's like not necessarily that you're wanting to connect with somebody from the past, it can be about through the conversations that you're having with friends, you get closure. It can be like a friend that's just like gives you really great advice and is like, hey man, like, you're really an awesome person and super capable or capable of, like finding an amazing person. Like, don't get hung up on this. Like, there's something good out there for you. Like, stay optimistic. Sometimes with the trine also to your sun, because the sun rules your 5th, it can be a situation where it's like there's this like friend that's like, hey, I want to introduce you to somebody. I think, you guys would be a good match. Or the female friend who you're talking to back and forth, and then you kind of realize like, oh my God, like they've been in front of me all along and they've been giving me advice, and like this is actually a really great match for me, but I've been hung up on this person. Something like that can happen. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Watch out for conflicts with coworkers, because Mercury does rule your 6th. So, when I think of like open conflict, that's the 7th house. When it's squaring off with Pluto in your 10th, it's like whether or not you're getting along with other people at work, and whether or not other people are getting short with you. There can be stuff like that that's happening as well. But because of the trine from Mars to Saturn, because of the trine from Mercury to Jupiter, it's going to make you realize also that sometimes a little bit of this like hashing out of stuff is good. There can be situations where you really realize who your real friends are. There can also be situations where, you take a look around and you become more aware of your goals in relationships. Sometimes with this, you can see things on social media because Mercury square Pluto is like that dagger in the heart. And you're like, oh, she's got a new boyfriend, she's moved on. Or, she told me that, she would call me back, but she's with another person and she's posting on Snapchat or something, Those things can also kind of come up that make you kind of realize like, okay, like, it may not go there. Or you're feeling like you're kind of getting friend zoned. But needless to say, regardless of how it's planning out, whether it's professional or with friendships or with old relationships, it's this clearing to really get you ready and make you realize that fulfillment and love and appreciation or value, it doesn't stem necessarily just from romantic love. You can get your cup filled in a number of different ways, from networking and friends and connecting to other people, that could also make you feel like you have companionship, so you're not going back to old unhealthy patterns with other people or seeking recognition from people who are not giving you what you deserve. Okay, so hopefully that is helpful for you. Cool. So if you're definitely more about yourself than men, then I would just say there is a lot that's shifting, revolving around getting to that, and also addressing some of the stuff with your sun. So you'll have to let me know how that goes. Hi, Angelie. I've got you. I've got Angelie, and then I have Sarah in that order. So I will go ahead and take Angelie. Money and investments. how's that going and what I should invest in. You're welcome, Kurt. Hopefully that was thankful. Hello. Hopefully that was helpful. I'm like speaking and reading your message at the same time. I can't with this Mercury retrograde. And I'm just gonna, should just stop while I'm ahead. 3/17/87 for Angeli. And that was at 9:53 a.m. in Florida. Miami. But you're in Chicago. Okay. Okay. All right. So we've got you here with the Gemini rising. Is that the right time? Why am I double and triple checking this? March 17th, 87, 9:53 a.m. Okay, yeah, this is right. Okay. So you have questions about investments. So Gemini, second house, Mercury in Pisces, 10th house. Mercury also rules the 5th. Creative industries, film companies, movie companies, independent ones too. So like streaming networks and services, that might be something that you might want to invest in. Equally, Jupiter has been there a little bit over this last year. So I'm wondering what came up for you. Let me know what you have already possibly invested in, or what have you already made money on. That's what makes me wonder. Jupiter's been there, and it's the ruler of your 8th, so it can also be losses. So I'm wondering if you like tried, but it wasn't the right time, or you got in and you wanted to invest in something, but it was like already going up, so you spent money on it. Was there anything like that happened? Especially places, it sounds silly, but like companies that make like theme parks or movies, like maybe Disney. Or like a Disney streaming, that could be something else that you could do, because I see like Mercury in Pisces is like fantasy. And then when you have a strong enough aspect to your Mercury, you'll see some gains as well. So you'll definitely see something that could pay off as early as like the spring. I mean, I'm going to keep telling people, you know, Jupiter going into, okay, yeah, that's fine, Bitcoin and Ethereum. That's more Uranus. So you'll see that when maybe Mars and Venus and stuff goes through there, you'll have a bit of a payoff. So there might be a nice little chunk when it conjuncts and then it sextiles or it squares. So something nice might pop up around Halloween. And then I think you're going to need a real significant Jupiter or nodal transit for that to pay off. You'll start seeing the sextiles in the spring, so that'll start paying off, but I don't think you're going to sell it. You want to wait maybe until Jupiter comes into a square with Uranus and there's going to be a bigger payoff. So that'll be the end of 2022 in December. And then when Jupiter trines, that's going to be nice. And that payoff also, where it's like, you're like, wow, this is actually really something, that's going to be about mid-2023. So that does make sense in the long term. Apple makes sense, yeah. Technology, Mercury, technology. But you want to also think about companies that are working a lot. Yeah, screens, that's Apple, but I feel like movies and visual and things that might be kind of like virtual reality-esque, that's going to be something else that's going to do well. But if you've invested in those, that definitely feels like that's going to be something that's going to do well. Technology, right? Because you have Uranus in the 8th, and even your Venus is in Uranus's sign, and there is a sextile between the two. So having Jupiter kind of hit that recently was about you kind of forecasting and looking in the future, going, wow, this is really going to be worth something. Perhaps when Saturn comes into a sextile with Uranus, it really stabilizes. Some of those companies' values go up, and you're going to make more. But, you know, I also see like Gemini ruling your second house. So it's like things that you hold with your hand. So like, yeah, phones, Apple, stuff like that, smaller tablets, screens. Equally, it may be cars. So that's another thing, because I could see Mercury being cars. So cars that might, maybe not even electric vehicles. I would say like stuff that's probably going to burn other liquids, or things that are going to run on like natural gases. That could be something else, especially when Jupiter shows up. But still, like some kind of like travel or digital traveling stuff might really apply here. I am also kind of like liking that both Jupiter and Neptune are coming into a conjunction with your sun. So that's telling me like you're going to start connecting and talking to a lot of other people about investments online, and like kind of getting wind of like, you know, where big things are happening, and making friends with new places, and possibly considering like moving somewhere in the future as a result of that Jupiter-Neptune conjunction. That could happen. Even if you don't do it yet, you're going to start making friends with people in other places, but it may be the setup trying to actually get you to move. So be mindful that may be happening in the next couple of years. And it's as a result of maybe people who you network and stuff online. I like Uranus in the 8th though, especially because it's the ruler of your 10th. It's like you have a company that hits it big, and it's like boom. Equally, that can be you getting involved in working with companies where you're in a situation where just like suddenly, you know, like that particular startup or that company goes public, and you're working for them, right? Or you're working with them, and maybe before it goes public, they give you some of the stock, and you're like, okay, well, what do I do with this? Like, you gave it to me, but okay, whatever. And then it goes through the roof. So you want to also pay attention to who you're working for, because I see this as group benefits that come from other people. Maybe eventually down the road, it can start to come up for you while Jupiter and Neptune are on your sun next year, because it'll make you want to wander to other places. Because Pisces are going to, especially if it rules your 4th house, you're going to get really kind of like, I could live here, I could live there. You'll start playing around with the idea of other places that you could go. Oh, so you're in tax. Okay, cool. So yeah, I mean, that's the thing is I would say pay attention. With Sun square Uranus, it makes me feel like there's always going to be sudden opportunities to move where there's work or something that's going to provide you with a change. Uranus is the ruler of your 10th house of work. The sun is the ruler of your 4th house of home. So because of that square, every time that you have transiting planets over those angles or the later degrees of the mutable signs, stuff happens. Also, Pluto's been in a square to your moon, so I'm kind of surprised he didn't move yet, but maybe when Jupiter and the sun conjunct. Yeah, I have a feeling you're going to meet a lot of wealthy people that are going to live in other countries. And you'll start maybe working with networks of people who are in other places, and maybe they start saying to you, you know, hey, Angelique, can I, do you accept Bitcoin? Like, can I pay you in crypto, or something like that could happen. And that may be the investment that you're getting, where you start accepting it before it really becomes something that is seen globally as valuable. And maybe you're taking payments like that for a year or so, and then all of a sudden it goes through the roof, and you're like, yes, I've made my money. Or that you start actually offering services where you're talking to people about tax implications and like tax stuff pertaining to cryptocurrency. So hopefully that is helpful for you. Thank you, Kobe. So Kobe's in the queue. We've got Sarah Peters. Those of you guys, it's so crazy, because I was, get a sticker that says I accept Bitcoin. I was thinking today with all the stuff. Did you guys see the stuff that happened on Twitter? So now you can go through Twitter and you can like instantly send, it's a network for Bitcoin, but you can instantly send like payments through Twitter that's basically like Bitcoin. And it'll convert. I don't know, go and look it up. But it's like this new thing that they're doing. And I was like, oh my God, it's literally Saturn square Uranus. And I think back to like the .com era, where it was Saturn in Taurus square Uranus in Aquarius. And it was like the buildup of the internet, right? And the internet got big and everybody put money into it. Now it's that the internet is putting money into money, and it's actually allowing us to transfer and kind of utilize. And now like the social media networks are kind of getting involved in like the banking system, and certainly that might upend parts of the banking system if you can immediately send money without, I don't know if there's transfer fees or anything, that I don't know, but just the fact that you can send it, and it just eliminates the need, I guess not, it eliminates the need to even have to go through the banks. So if you're like dealing with Western Union and you have to send money across the world and it takes a week, this is instant. So it's definitely going to put all of the banks on their toes, and they're going to have to level up. So I could definitely see like tax laws and all kinds of tax stuff is going to have to change, because technically it's an asset that you're holding. It's not like giving somebody a cash tip. So there's going to be a lot changing in your world pertaining to that. But knowing all of that information and being able to give that information to your clients is what's going to give you the upper hand. So very interesting. I'm going to have to give you a call. I'm going to start accepting Bitcoin, hopefully. We'll see. Okay, Sarah, your question is May 13th, 81 at 5:33 a.m. Can you talk about my upcoming eclipse season? My YouTube name is Alchemy in the Stars by Stars in chat. Okay, so let's plug your information in. May 13th, 1981. And that was at 5:33 a.m. Another Floridian. So let's look at what's going on with you for eclipse season. So this gives you a Taurus rising, sun in Taurus, and your moon is in Virgo. Hello, Alchemy. Okay, so let's take a look. Good question about eclipse season. Holy cow. Ha! I look at this chart and I'm like, ah! So, okay, let's break it down. So there is an eclipse that's coming on the 19th, let me just pull it up, the 19th of November. And it'll be a north node eclipse, and it's going to be conjunct your sun within a couple degrees. Here we go. Right here. So this particular eclipse is going to highlight the natal opposition that you have between the sun and Uranus. So it's going to bring up this theme of me versus the world, me versus other people. I'm in a relationship, I'm not in a relationship, I'm partnered, I'm single, whatever. Equally, you're coming into your Uranus opposition, which I see eventually for you over the next couple of years is the now or never transit, right? So it's kind of like, okay, sun opposed Uranus is there's lots of change in your life, falling in and out of love maybe because the sun rules the 5th house, or partners that come and go, children who come and go, younger people who come and go, creativity who comes and goes. And then Uranus rules your 11th house of goals. So it's like, I want a partner, I don't want a partner. With the North Node coming into conjunction with your sun, it's more about you, your body, what you value, your heart space, 5th house, your inner child, your creativity, what you're giving birth to. Whether this is the project that you launch, the pregnancy that you have, the new relationship that develops, there's something big happening revolving around that for you. And it's really going to play out from mid-November all the way until your birthday next year. The other thing that I'll tell you is that the second eclipse that you're going to be having 2 weeks later is going to be one that's going to be still in opposition to your Mercury. And Mercury in your chart is the ruler of the 6th house. So not a lot of people realize that, but it can bring up, especially in this chart, like changes with work, changes with coworkers, changes with your diet, changes in your thought patterns, like old outdated ideas. It might kind of have you moving your schedule around a little bit. That's definitely something that I can see. I also feel like with this opposition to the sign of Gemini where you have your Venus is that if something is not in alignment relationship-wise, you will make the decision to cut somebody loose because it's highlighting your Mercury, which is the 6th house. And guess what, guys? That's where relationships go to die because it's 12 signs away from your 7th. So if you're not feeling something, I want you to pay real close attention to what's happening the first 2 weeks of December. If they are not cutting it, bye, let them go, be done with it. Use that eclipse to be able to wrap that up. That new moon that's in your 8th is about renewal. It's about healing. Then down the road, yes, you are going to have another series of eclipses that are going to come in like April, May. And those particular eclipses are also going to be very intense. It looks like you've got an eclipse revolving around your birthday, within 48 hours of your birthday. Just a word to the wise, because this is going to be a birthday where you are having a square to Saturn. I feel like it's a really good time to get a solar return. So make sure, find an astrologer who you resonate with, who knows what they're doing. If you want to see me, come and see me. I'm happy to see you, but get a solar return birthday reading, because there's an eclipse happening. So that's a big deal. It's a full moon eclipse. So it's telling me that basically your birthday in May moving forward, it's a brand new year. You're receiving all of the fruits of everything that you've been working towards. But there's a square to Saturn. Tells me that you're not going to be down for relationships that are situationships. It also tells me that there's a little bit of like, I'm going to focus on friendships. And if something comes of that, great. So there's something like that that's brewing. Let me read what you said. Okay. You have printed out paperwork for the divorce. Well, this is a really interesting teaching lesson, guys. If you notice what she just said, she's saying, I already have printed out the paperwork for the divorce. What's going on in her chart right now? Mercury is sitting in her 6th house. It's getting ready to retrograde. It's about a document. It's a paper. And it's going retrograde. It's going to come into conjunction with her Pluto, which means she goes, I'm waiting for the right time to give it to him. I am waiting for the right time to give it to him. Can you confirm that just for people who are listening? Or maybe you're like, I want to find a time where it works with my work schedule, so I'm not dealing with this and then also having to scramble, or there's something going on because it's conjuncting your Pluto. And she's been thinking about it, or she's been kind of keeping that in the back of her mind, because Mercury has been in shadow for a little while. So she might have actually made this decision around mid-September, when Mercury was conjunct Pluto, maybe. Let me know, just for learning purposes. Yeah. Okay. So see what I'm saying, guys? So this is great proof for why, when you have aspects, not just a Mercury retrograde. I don't want you guys to be like, oh, Mercury retrograde, you're going to get divorced in the 6th. No. But it's the precursor for her going, I've been planning, because I could see the squares that were happening to Pluto. To me, it looks like this is all setting up for you and you're trying to pick the best time. Just a word to the wise. There's never a good time to get divorced. I'm sorry to hear that you're going through that. But I also trust that whatever decision that you have made to separate is because you're kind of coming back home to yourself with this eclipse on your sun, and what you know that your heart needs, and that you need more love or affection or appreciation or romance or playtime. There's something that you're missing. So you're like, gotta sever it. There's no good time, but this retrograde is really teaching you that it needs to come out before you get to the Venus retrograde, which is going to be happening at the end of December going into early January. At that point in time, that's when Mercury conjuncts Pluto. So maybe it's like they're going to kind of wrestle with you, and they're going to be like, I don't want to end it, or, I don't want to do this, or, let's try to work it out. And then you're going to come to the end of the year. And that's really when the love dies, or the actual physical union dies. So you might start telling people like, we're separated, we're divorced. You take your photos off Facebook. You start telling people that, you're moving somewhere else. Things like that might start really physically coming up because it's the 10th house out in the world. So I would just advise you to go through that the best that you can. Watch out for the verbal barbs that are coming, and best of luck with that whole transition. And I would just say, keep focusing on that physical body. Keep focusing on other creative ways of being able to express yourself, whether that's hobbies, dancing, going and having playtime. You've got a 5th house moon, so you need some kind of an outlet for that. And I think that there's just so much support coming for you in this next year, with Jupiter aligning with Neptune and opposing your moon, that it's going to get you thinking about what is family and how you can feel secure and fulfilled and loved and surrounded by people who are friends and other people who are going to show you that it's okay to go through this transition, and that you're not going to be alone, and they will celebrate you also, because that is going to sextile your sun. Take a dance class, take an art class. If you have kids, spend time with your kids. Go get a young, sexy, hot lover. I mean, I think that's probably what's going to happen with the oppositions that you're going to be having. So you'll definitely have a little bit of more fun and romance. But to me, it seems like a year where maybe you're like, I'm not even thinking about commitment. I need to focus on me. If I have fun, great. But I want to get back out there, spend time with my friends, and feel like I am a part of like groups and feeling supported. Okay. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Hopefully. Moving on to Mr. Kobe, you know, I'm just going to totally read you for filth, my friend, because I remember specifically on some of those lives where you were telling me like, no, girl, I'm not doing that. That's not going to happen. Like this, that, and the other. And I was like, listen, bitch, you're going to go on vacation. You're going to go on a little trip. You're going to do something. You're going to meet somebody. Your whole world's going to change. I just want to hear it. I told you so. That's all I want to hear. I just want to hear it. And I love a good romantic story, so maybe it's just I'm sappy. So he's asking questions about another person. So this is the Synastry, so you guys can kind of take a look at what I see. Just want to hear a quick take from you on their Synastry in general, looking at the composite Saturn return. It looks serious. I love living in the future. Do you want me to look at your Synastry of the two charts together, or would you like me to look at the composite chart transits? Because you're talking about two things. So the Synastry would be the two charts, the composite chart would be the chart together. And I can definitely look at a composite Saturn return if that's what you want. You're very, very welcome, Alchemy. Sending you lots of good Stella got her groove back, divorce vibes. So let me know, Kobe. I'm going to start plugging this in. So let me do that. We're going to call last call. So anybody who wants to get your readings in, get those readings in. Okay, so 3/15/1990. And that was at 2:58 a.m. And that was in Donaldson. No. Why is it giving me Nashville? Okay, I think it's just right outside of it. So we've got that one. And then let's look at the other one. And I'll just make this the live chat. 1:15/96. And that was at 8:20 a.m. And Gallatin. Okay, just do the Synastry because it's fascinating. Okay. Well, she's a Cap, so she's going to bust your balls. All right. So let's look at this. Show charts. Okay. So remind me, this is correct. You're the Pisces, right? Because I didn't put the names in. I guess I should have done that. Okay. Just remind me who's who, so I know. Maybe I'll put the names in here so I don't get confused. Thanks for your patience, guys. Sorry. Yeah, okay, you're the Pisces. Okay, so let me just edit this really quick. There we go. Okay. Huh. You didn't request. It's okay, no worries. Okay, so Kobe, we have got you, the Pisces sun in the 2nd house, your Cap rising, and your moon is in Scorpio in the 9th. Couple things that I will tell you, just take all of her transits, because she's going through an ungodly amount of transits right now, right? Like, you know her chart, you can see it. She's got Pluto, and she's also got Pluto's conjunct her sun and her Neptune. So there's like a real interesting kind of otherworldly series of events and things that are happening to her. She's going through big personal changes, but take that out of the picture, because you're meeting somebody in the midst of them just going through it. You found somebody who has their sun on your ascendant. And I remember one of my astrology teachers told me this a really long time ago. They kept saying, if you want to have a really easy relationship life, marry the person who has their sun in your ascendant sign. If you do this, it will be something that, number one, will light you up naturally. It'll allow you to be your most authentic self. And when you go through transits in your chart, that person is going to help you embrace the changes that you're going through, because equally, especially when it's close in degrees, you guys could read the same horoscope. You guys could read Capricorn, you know, the second, or the, I guess technically the 3rd decan of Capricorn. You could read that, and when you need to go through physical changes, she's there to help you do it. I'm a big fan of that. I feel like she is your Pluto transit though, and she is definitely going to be your Venus retrograde transit. So keep in mind that this is a woman that's going to have Venus and Pluto crossing over her sun and her Neptune, and it's going to be huge for her between December and March of next year. So December 2021 through March of 2022. Equally, your Saturn sits conjunct her sun. So it's karmic. You're dealing with some karmic stuff. Whether she stays or she goes, that's neither here nor there. On one hand, I feel like whatever challenges you guys are experiencing is like a leveling up for the two of you right now to like really become your most adult, authentic selves and really start doing your Capricorn work about the long game. And it's not always like, are we going to get married? But it's like, what are our goals? How are we acting mature? How are we moving through life? Where do we want to live? How do we present ourselves to the world? And it's about taking something seriously because it's Capricorn. So that's just my 2 cents. 2 is, she's got her Mars in the same sign as your Venus. She's got her Mercury conjunct your Mars. It's like you guys light a fire under each other's ass and you get each other going. She equally also is in a position right now where she does have Jupiter that has activated her Juno, her Mercury, her Mars. I'm going to tell you something. Her chart says she's going to be with an astrologer who works for himself and is different and unconventional and weird and wacky and unique. Okay? I love it. I also think that what's really fun is that her Venus is the same sign as your sun. You guys got a double sun Saturn thing going on. So you hold each other accountable for your own happiness, your own personal hangups, your own personal growth. It's like, this is like such a Saturn relationship. It's unreal. I look at this and I'm like, holy shit. The one thing that I would say that seems challenging is that you do also have Saturn in close proximity to each other's Mercury. Her Saturn sits right on your Mercury, right? Ruler of the 8th house, which means she kind of helps you level up and start talking about security, finances, money, saving money, making money. Mercury conjunct Saturn in a composite chart or a synastry chart can also talk about like not feeling like the other person is listening or valuing what they have to say. And so, you know, I think with her Saturn on your Mercury, it's a lot of like, you better say what you mean because she's going to hold you to it, and vice versa. I see that your Saturn is particularly close also to her Mercury. So regardless, this is a super karmic relationship. We have transit Saturn, Juno, Venus conjunct or composite Saturn, Venus in that return. I had those same transits when I met my fiance. It was the same exact transits, and it was pretty fucking wild because I remember being like, okay, somebody's going to show up, and it is karmic, right? When you're dealing with Saturn, it's karmic. But specifically the Saturn-Juno-Venus conjunction is very interesting if it's happening on your composite sun, because it's saying now is the time. Now is the time to level up. Composite Mercury opposite Chiron. Yeah. So we can look at the composite really quick, because some people are like, what does this mean? And you've got transit Saturn on your guys' composite ascendant. Jupiter's on your guys' composite Venus. You guys need each other for the future. That's really what's going on. You guys are both helping each other kind of grow, and you're holding each other accountable. Look at the first house in this. I also like a lot that Uranus and Neptune are conjunct in the 12th. Something about you helping her through her spiritual, she should be having weird ascension symptoms. Have you noticed this? Because she's got Pluto on her sun and also on her Neptune. She's going to have all types of weird otherworldly things, and she's becoming aware of like the occult world and metaphysics and spirituality. And then here you are, you're Saturn, and you're like, yeah, this is what I do for a living, and blah, 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 blah. And she's going to like take in all that information to help her grow. I think probably the biggest thing is that, yeah, you're right when you talk about like possibly the living situation. I don't know if this is just through you guys talking or if it's through your actual transits, but you got an eclipse coming conjunct your IC. You've got Saturn that's also coming into your Saturn return conjunct the sun. So it's literally a situation. Does she live somewhere else? Does she live in another place? Are you having to talk about moving to be closer with her, or are you guys talking about moving in together? Like, do you guys need to pick a city you're going to live in, or pick a side of town? Is there something like that going on? But you're right. When Saturn comes into conjunction with your Venus, it's a commitment, right? And so you guys are both on an individual level, Venus in the first, committing to what? The fourth house, a home. But not just a home, it's also going to conjunct the sun. So we're in a public relationship. We're together. Oh, we're talking about maybe getting married. I don't want to move in unless we're going to get married. You're going to hear a lot of these things with all of these squares. But Jupiter is there now. And so because Jupiter is there now, what it's doing for you is it's basically saying, let's talk about all the things that we can do in the future to be able to make this happen. And I am predicting that it's really popping off sometime between mid-November and February. And you really want to watch for those transits, because Saturn says it's time. It's time. It's time to do this. Saturn is the ruler of this chart. So is Uranus. But even Uranus is having a conversation with Saturn about moving. So something about moving so you're not constantly going back and forth. We're trying to pretend we're not because it's early. But yeah, we're talking about it. No, I mean, it's not often that I will come out and just be like, this will happen. Here's what I see happening. There's no being friends with this person after this, because the chart talks a lot about that person coming into your life and pushing you to do things that you never thought you would do. Equally, the sun squares Pluto. So in this Synastry chart, or this composite chart, so sun square Pluto means something has to actually change and transform and let go. And it's both of you guys are dealing with being kind of selfish, or used to being lone rangers, or used to doing things by yourself, or used to thinking you're never going to get married, you're never going to settle down, or you're never going to actually pursue a job in something. So there's a lot of change that has to happen equally on both, sides. And guess what? It's going to be 2 years of the Thunderdome. Not just because it's the Saturn return in this chart, but it's Saturn conjunct Venus, Saturn conjunct Saturn, Saturn conjunct the sun, Saturn conjunct Mercury, all square Pluto. So you guys both have to be willing to change and transform the way that you look at your public image. I was single, now I'm in a relationship. I never thought I would get married. Maybe I will. I never would live with somebody. Now I will. If you don't do that, you guys will get crushed by transit Uranus coming into an opposition with Pluto. So it's like literally you either jump in and you hit the ground running and you go, you know what, I actually think this is the person I'm going to do this with. Okay, we're going to do this. Or it's not going to, I don't like saying it's not going to work. It's not going to work. The first, fourth, seventh, and 10th house are being activated. Taking action, finding a home, getting married, planning a legacy, or doing some kind of work together. So I actually think it's really great for you. And I think that you just want to maintain the fact that you guys are still also individual beings. And, you're in a situation where you're not losing your identity in your relationship. Okay, I don't think you will, having looked at the Synastry, but you can't lose your identity in your relationship. Don't try to make her an astrologer. Just a little bit of advice. Don't do that. Try to focus more on, this is what I do. I'll give you advice. I'm going to help you. Let's build together. This is what we can do. But you don't want to mesh yourselves. You guys need your own identities. She's in a period right now where Pluto's on her sun Neptune, where she can be easily kind of seduced with the idea of like a mystical, magical older man that comes into her life. And, you know, I think the magic will rub off on her, but she's got to stay on her own path. And I want to look at, let me get rid of your chart really quick. I would just want to look at her chart really quick because I'm a little curious because I didn't just look at hers, and then I'll move on to the next question. Where was it? Live. Sorry, you guys are probably like, she's all over the place. Oh, she's in Aquarius rising. And she's got all those planets in her first house. So I assume you've spoken to her and you've talked to her about her Saturn return, right, Kobe? And that her Saturn return is about loving and appreciating and taking care of herself and maintaining herself. And whether this is her vision, her body, her independence, whatever, that's very important. Super important. But I love that Pluto is conjunct her sun and her Neptune, and it's the ruler of her 7th house. And she's like, oh my God, this is him. This is, I mean, she already knows. She might have said that she had dreams or visions of you guys together in the future. Did she say that to you? This is so cool. I really like this. And she's super badass with all that Scorpio and Capricorn and Aquarius. She's tough. This is like really, really, really cool. I really like this. I would just say that you in her chart ring as somebody who is very intense and very, you know, Capricorn, Neptunian, Piscean, and you are her 12th house. So just know that this is a chart that's got a lot of dad issues. There's a lot of daddy issues with this chart with the sun Neptune. Either she has issues with abandonment or men who don't show up for her or don't communicate well with her, or, you know, they like mislead her. So it's like, if you're going to make plans, you have to understand that you have to stick to what you tell her. And also equally, there's a lot of her playing out some kind of karma with dad stuff with you. Yeah, she could be, but she needs some more time. She needs more time before she tries to do something like that. And I'm not one to say when somebody can or cannot be an astrologer. That's not my spiel. Like, there are people who wake up at 55 years old and take a course and it changes their life and they learn how to cast charts and all kinds of stuff and then they become astrologers. So that's not what I'm saying. But because she's going through such extreme transits right now, I feel like she'll absorb more and maybe she can take it more seriously when Saturn's on her ascendant. So hopefully that's helpful, Kobe. I think it's a good move. Watch for the Venus retrograde. Call me when you need a wedding date. Okay, I'll do that for you. Let's see what people are saying. Queen of Wands, can you do this for me in 2 weeks when you do these again? Yes, of course. When you need it, let me know. Oh, Kobe's going to get married. Kristen's going to get married. Everybody's getting married. How exciting. Okay, let's see who else we have, and we'll wrap up the live. I think we had one more person that snuck in. Maybe. There we go. Hi, Melissa. May 13th, 1981. Why are there so many Tauruses in here? I love my Tauruses. Y'all are stubborn, but you smell good. 7:10 a.m. Okay, so can you do my progress chart? I feel like things are stagnant. I've lost a lot of people. No one's coming in. It feels like I'm a cheese that stands alone. Was working on opening a healing center and that literally was stopping its tracks. I'm a single mom. I don't get out hardly, just focus on my work, doing massage. Maybe I wanted to know what there is to look forward to. There is always a lot to look forward to. Let's take a look. Okay, so we'll do your progressed. Those of you guys, if you haven't looked at your progress chart, do not sleep on your progress chart. I feel like I look at that now more than anything else. Okay, so you got a progressed Cancer sun, Cancer rising. Moon is in Pisces and it's coming into a trine with your ascendant. Couple things. One is that you've gone through hell the last 2 years because the progressed moon has been in your 8th house. Now the moon, your chart ruler, is moving into the 9th, which means travel, studies, new growth, new mentors, new gurus, good luck. There's lots of good luck that's going to be coming. And it's also now building into a trine with your ascendant. So something about the moon, the emotional body, is really kind of coming through the 9th house ascendant more so. You're more emotional now that moon's in Pisces. So the shift that's happened really happened about 2 or 3 months ago. You broke away from the late degrees of Aquarius and your 8th house, so you're a survivor. The other thing that I would say is that as the moon is building into trines with your ascendant, it's going to be doing that for quite some time, clear to next fall. And I wonder, like, are you considering taking a course? Are you going to be teaching a course? Do you need a certification? Are you going to want to be mentoring or teaching students? Is that something that's coming up for you? Especially in the areas of like Reiki, hands-on healing. I know you said a healing center, but you may become somebody who's a facilitator or a teacher of some kind, and that's going to bring you emotional fulfillment. It's also coming into a trine with your Venus, so I feel like it's very strong for groups. So it does look like that's going to really strengthen, really all next year into the new year, especially in 2023. Equally, the other thing I would say that's going on with this chart that's kind of wild is that you do have your Mercury at 29 degrees, so that feels very mentally kind of frazzled. Mercury is the ruler of the 12th house and healing centers, and now that it's going retrograde, you're having to go back, reevaluate, rework something, and think about what you want. So maybe there's something going on where you're going to have to be mentoring or teaching or certifying or training people. So there's something that's going to happen in order to kind of ramp this back up. So if you want to do your healing center, you can. I would advise you to wait maybe until the moon comes out of a square with Mercury. So maybe like, it may take some time. You can also look at this in solar return charts. Let me pull this up again. But maybe like when Jupiter comes into a trine, so there's like a possibility for like a revamp that can happen in the new year. And that'll be like January, February. Oh, you're learning medical astrology. Sorry, I'm trying to multitask. My daughter's dad passed last year and dealing with her stuff this past year. I'm so sorry to hear that. 8th house moon, when you have an 8th house moon transit, that is rough. But you're out, and I would just say that whatever this new thing is that you're learning, it's going to be really beneficial because I think it might help you. So you might start incorporating more of the astrology into the healing, so you know what part of the body to work on. And then the moon can also be working with herbal stuff, and you start learning about roots and herbal things, or working a lot with women, or women who are trying to get pregnant, or women who are having hormonal issues. So that somehow is going to factor in. And in order for you to really go the distance with some of the work that you want to do, you need this. And it's really important that you do this. It's really important that you really apply yourself. It's really important that you keep your eyes out, because there's still mentors and gurus that are coming in clear through next spring. That's really going to help you kind of get everything moving and shaken. And I feel like with that Mercury retrograde, it's like reevaluating, like, do I need to have the center? What do I need to go back and work on and reevaluate before I do something? And I would say, like, when you have a really strong transit, maybe you want to check your natal transits too. You may still have that center. Mars will go retrograde over your progressed Mercury, and that will be happening at the end of next year. The Mars retrograde in Gemini. So that might be a time where you go back to the drawing board at the end of 2022 and go, okay, now am I ready? And you might reevaluate doing that, and maybe you'll launch something closer to 2023. So you needed to learn something new to be able to go out and make that successful. So stay on the path of that, and hopefully you have some awesome gurus that come in and work with you and teach you. Medical astrology that's a heavy subject. There's a lot. You have to really understand all of the placements, but also like my experience with medical astrology, I did a lot of work with that with like herbalism, is like all of the different herbs and the things that affect the body and the cooling and the this and the that. So major kudos to you, because that takes a lot of commitment and definitely a lot of studying. So I'm looking forward to see what you do and what you put out there. I'm sure there's going to be some profound things that come from that Mercury at 29 degrees. It will be there for quite some time. And it won't be until you break that 29 degrees that the studying or even like the mental chatter or the stress calms down. So that once again is going to be spring of 2023. Hopefully that was helpful. All right, guys, that was quite an evening. As always, I love getting a chance to spend my Friday nights with you. Thank you for joining me. If you want to book a reading with me, check out my links below. Check out my website, Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. I've got readings, full hours, half hours. If you don't want to wait, the 4 to 8 or 9 weeks to talk to me, you can book a 1 or a 3 question offer. The link is in my bio, as is all my social media. You like astrology memes? Follow me. And don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. Stay tuned. I'm going to be doing my astro weather on Monday. Holy cow, the next month ahead is insane. I'm going to go in depth talking about what's happening with the retrograde and everything you can expect for the month of October. Equally, if you haven't already checked it out, check out my podcast I do with the Peace Stealer, the Midheaven Podcast. We've got something new that's going to be dropping for our members tomorrow, where we talk about current events. And he and I also have a Mercury retrograde episode that's going to come out not this Monday, but next Monday. But if you're subscribed to that, you get it early. So make sure you check that out. And you guys have any questions, especially those of you guys who maybe got a little bit caught up in live, or you were sleeping, or you see this later, leave me a comment. I love to read the comments and check in with you guys at a later date. I'll see all of you guys very soon. Enjoy your weekend. Take care.